Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I feel humbled of the amount of experts that have been presenting before me. Unfortunately, I'm not a botanist, so I will try to talk about different issues than the ones that were presented before me, and I will try to keep it short. So basically, I'm here to talk about Project Life Resilva Natura. It's an ongoing project. We started in September 2014, and we will finish by 2019, which means we don't have a lot of results to show you yet. So I'm going to talk to you about the general purpose, aims, and the setting of the project. So, okay. Oh, this won't work. Oh, yeah. So, first of all, what is Ripasilva? You all are scientists, you know about it. Ripasilva is the forest that grows by the rivers, right? It's Latin. It's a river forest. So, and what is so important about Ripasilva? Why do we want to preserve it or to enhance it? Well, basically, it's a habitat that provides a lot of ecosystem services, right? So, this is very important because when you are trying to implement a life project in the field with people who live there, you have to really explain why do you want to do what you are doing. So these services are depicted here. First of all, it's a habitat. It's a much richer habitat than simple, for instance, reed area. A lot of creatures live there, like, for instance, mammals and fish and birds. It's also a corridor. It's been mentioned before that rivers are corridors where not only native species can travel around, but also invasive species, and we're going to see that this is one of the problems we have with the riparian forest where the project is implemented. It's also a filter, so it provides a service of filtering basically all the nutrients from the agriculture and all the pesticides that otherwise would go into the water. So the main point about this is that if we were to try to imitate this service that it provides for free with grey engineering, it would probably cost us millions of euros. So it's very important that we preserve an ecosystem that is giving us that service for free. It's also a source of organic material, so that enhances the whole food chain, because there are animals that degrade that organic material, and there are animals that eat those animals, and so on. It also provides shade, and this is very important, especially in Murcia, because, well, I haven't told you that, but this project is performed in southeastern Spain, where it gets really, really hot in the summer, 40 degrees or so. So it's really important that about shade. But not only because it provides shelter for the species that travel around as a corridor, but also because it prevents evaporation of the water, and also because it enhances the oxygen dissolving capacity of the water, so it's very good also for the fish life in the water. It's also a tool, a very powerful tool to prevent floods. Most people tend to think the opposite, that when there is a forest with trees around the river, the floods are worse. But actually what it does is enhances the natural capacity of water retention. So it's a natural water retention measures. As opposition to other type of vegetation in the riverbanks that may get loose when a flood comes, and then may form blocks that create danger to the people. So it's also good for that. It's also a barrier that, when in good conditions, can stop the expansion of alien invasive species, but not only that, or they can also stop wildfires because of the high humidity content of the native species that live on the riparian forest. So we have told why is it important to restore the riparian forest, but why do we need to do so? What is the problem? Well, in fact, there are many problems, many different problems at the moment. First of all, we have a basin with a great agricultural potential. 30% of Spanish exports of agricultural goods come from the basin where we are working. And so we have lots of infrastructures to regulate the river for water saving, for reservoirs. And also we have a lot of infrastructures to prevent floods, which are a major issue in the basin because of the Mediterranean weather with the typical spring and fall storms. We also have the pressure of agrarian activities, as you can see here. On the left-hand side, we have a mountain, a hill, so there is a good development of the riparian forest. On the right-hand side, we have agrarian activities that come right to the edge of the river. So there is virtually no vegetation in that area. Of course, we have the problem of invasive species, because those two problems that we saw before make a very good start for the expansion of invasive species, especially the giant reed or Arundodonax, which is the one that our project is basically focusing on fighting against. We don't want to eradicate it, and I have good news. We're not using chemicals, so that's a good point for us. But we only want to reestablish the balance between the native vegetation, the riparian forest, and the invasive ones. Wildfires can also be a problem, and the giant reed plays a very important role in them, because when in winter it gets very dry, it's very combustible, and so it enhances the fire to catch on to the trees of the riparian forest that normally would be pretty much impervious to fire. But with the presence of lots of fuel nearby, it's very frequent for them to catch on fire, and then they disappear, and the giant reed resprouts very soon after that. So we have been having a workshop on what are alien invasive species, so I'm not going to give you another definition, but I'm going to talk about the consequences they have on the riparian area. The giant reed does not have a very powerful root system. Normally the root is about half a meter underground. So that means, first of all, they don't provide a filter for all those pesticides and nutrients from the agriculture. Second of all, they don't provide resistance against floods. So when there is a flood, all this organic material is going to be released, and it's going to form blocks that aggravate the effects of floods. Also, it's a very simple ecosystem. It's a habitat on itself, but it's a very simple one with not a lot of species living on it, especially in comparison with a mature riparian forest. And also, it has another consequence, that is basically that there has been studies in California that it evaporates as much as 7 times as much water as native riparian species. So in a region where we need as much water as we can get for agriculture, because it produces a lot of income, it's very important to tell that to the people. This is good for you because it saves water that you can use for irrigation crops. A little background on how the Ripe project started. On the Segura River Basin Authority, where I work, we had a previous life project, Segura River Link, that is working on the enhancing of the riparian connectivity on the river by creating fish passages for the migration of fish. They need to migrate to reproduce. So in that project, they also decided that it was very interesting to create new stretches of riparian forest around the obstacles that they were creating fish passages at. So we thought, okay, this is very important also for the continuity of the ecological corridor that is a river. And so we decided to make a new life proposal specifically designed to take care of that problem, of the absence of riparian forest. When we designed the project, we had to have partners in the project that would represent all the sectors of society. So we have the state government, which is where I work, and the Confederación Hidrográfica Segura is the River Basin Management Authority. We have the regional government. We have the city halls of the area project. We also have the university as a scientific consultant and representative of the science sector. And we also have an NGO that takes care of all the volunteer work and all the dissemination activities and so on. But an additional partner to the project, and this one that is fundamental in my opinion, is the neighbors, because we need to get them involved in the project. Whatever we do, we're just an administration. I work at an office in Murcia, and I just go to the field once or twice a week. There's people living there every day of the week. And if they're not on board, if they don't agree with what we are doing, if they don't understand what we are doing, it's probably going to fail. Because if they don't like the species that we are planting after getting rid of the giant reed, they're probably going to take them away. So we're not going to be successful. So it's very important to take the area neighbors as a sixth partner for the project. So this is basically the area project. This is southeastern Spain, and basically this is the Segura River Basin. The Segura River is about 400 kilometers long, 18,000 square kilometers of surface in the basin. And we are focusing in a 56-kilometer stretch in the middle part of the river. Why the stretch? Well, the upper part is pretty well preserved, and the lower part is absolutely lost because there is a channelization of the river, and so it's very difficult for us to restore that in proper terms. So we decided to act where there are still patches of well-preserved riparian forest, but we have very large stretches with the 100% invasion of giant reed. The intention is to create islands of riparian forest so that it will naturally expand. So that in some sense we are trying to restore the balance between the giant reed and the natural forest. With the other project that I mentioned, the Riverlink project, which as I said before also restores little stretches of riparian forest, we try to create a zipper effect. So we try to walk close to where they work so that we extend the activities. There we are. We don't go any further. Okay, finish. Okay, so it's a multidisciplinary project because we try to do a lot of stuff. We are not only focusing on fighting giant reed as one of the main causes of the decrease in the surface of riparian forest, but we are also trying to draft a manual for the prevention of alien invasive species at a basic scale, especially for riparian alien invasive species. We are also having a campaign with pet shops and with plant nurseries to raise awareness of the problem that alien invasive species represent and to try to avoid further development of this problem. We are also fighting wildfires in liaison with the firemen and with the neighbors of the area, trying to explain to them that fire is not a good way to fight against the giant reed because it basically, what it does is it eliminates any chance of natural recovery that the native species have because it affects more the native species than the giant reed. We're also developing an app that will feed a database so that this app can be used by the general public and also by environmental agents to call the attention to alien invasive species they found on the field. We are also planting native species where we cut the giant reed. We are also making signals in the power lines so that the birds don't crash against them. We are also doing volunteering activities. We are also marking what the public domain is, because as you know, in Spain, the riverbeds are public domain, so it's public territory. And sometimes the problem is that the farmers don't know this, and we have to mark it so that they learn about it. And we're also eliminating some longitudinal defense structures that are no longer in use, and that create a very good habitat for the giant reed and very difficult for the native species to recolonize it. So we are eliminating longitudinal riverbanks to allow for the riparian forest to regrow. So as you can see, it's a holistic project because we try to do a lot of stuff and all in the same direction. And thank you very much for your attention. I do encourage you to friend us on Facebook or Twitter because it's very important for us to have repercussion. And if you have any more doubts, you can write to our email or visit our website. Thank you very much.